Spring, summer, and fall. What are you gonna do with all your spare time? For me, the answer is simple. Hit the road and find cool stuff. Things that are worth a picture or two. And the stranger, the better I like it. In this episode, we're heading to well over 20 roadside attractions. These are located all over northern Indiana, all fun and interesting in their own right. Not to mention, absolutely free. You heard right. Let's hit the road. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Steve Alford. He played basketball for Indiana University and was pretty big stuff. An amazing player back in the day. He even played for Team USA with Michael Jordan during the 1984 Olympics. Steve played professionally before becoming a coach and used his money to invest in real estate. Such as here at Newcastle at the Steve Alford All-American Inn. But the real story is what's in front of the place. A very, very large shoe. The shoestring itself is basically a rope strong enough to pull a 4x4 out of the mud. I don't know what size it is, but I wear a 10, and it's definitely bigger. At Anderson, we find the Uranus Fudge Factory and General Store at 1423 West 53rd Street. If the name alone has already created a grin, this is the place for you. Here you'll find the mentioned fudge factory, gourmet popcorn, candy, and tons of merchandise. Let's take a peek inside. The jokes continue when you step through the door. Employees will even say, "Welcome to Uranus." This place has tons of things to choose from. It really is packed. Like fresh buttery caramel corn, straight from Uranus. And if you've got a large group of family and friends, grab a big bag. There is a large amount of candy and sweet stuff at Uranus, but also a ton of merchandise, all the way to the back door. Packing a lunch for work? They got you. You know which one I want. There are also a boatload of t-shirts that'll get you sent to Human Resources. Wear at your discretion. At Uranus, they will pack your fudge for the road. Just remember, the cars on 53rd Street do not stop. Be careful pulling out of Uranus. Heading to Alexandria, Indiana, we find something so impressive that it's listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. Hidden in this building is the world's largest ball of paint. Yes, that is a thing. As the story goes, in 1977, painter Mike Carmichael and his son dipped a baseball in paint. After it dried, they decided to do it again and again, marveling at how big it was becoming. Little did they know that someday it would become world famous and so big that it would require its own building. On the day I visited, it weighed in at 10,430 pounds. And throughout the week, it grows bigger and bigger as people drop by and add another coat of paint. They each receive a certificate for being part of the history. On the walls are signatures of people that have visited. Some are even famous. Famous or not, about everyone loves silly fun, and you'll find it here. At Kokomo, Indiana, a Highland Park, is a gigantic remnant of a tree. It's so big that it has its own building. Sometime in the early 1900s, a massive sycamore tree, hundreds of years old, fell down after a storm. At some point, someone got the idea that since they'd never seen a bigger tree in their entire life, that it should be taken to the park for everyone to see. At first, it just sat there as an oddity, with people cutting their names into the wood for posterity. That was kind of disrespectful to this great tree. So the National Youth Administration built an open-air shrine around it to protect it from vandals. Eventually, glass panels were added to make it the impressive display that it is today. The tree stump measures 12 feet high, 19 feet wide, and 57 feet in circumference. It is a monster. This is the largest sycamore tree stump in the entire world. Completely hollow, it once served as a phone booth and could accommodate 24 people. And then there's Old Ben, the largest steer in the world. Before he died and was stuffed for posterity, he was a whopping 4,720 pounds, stood 6 feet 4 inches tall, and was 16 feet 2 inches from his nose to the end of his tail. He was quite the steer, and that's no bull. Also in Kokomo is the Koko mantis, likely the largest praying mantis you'll see in your life. This monster is 17 feet tall and 22 feet long. Artist Scott Pilcher took 220 hours to build it, and it's been a local landmark ever since. If you look closely, the wings and body are fuel pontoons from World War II surplus. Materials recycled into art, and perfect to get your picture right next to it. In downtown Peru, we find ourselves at the Metal Source Recycling Company and a very large statue. Based on the character Megatron from the Transformers movie franchise, it is massive. If not for your homeowners association, it would look great in your front yard. Heading outside downtown Peru, we come to the Seven Pillars Nature Preserve. Just a minute's walk from the parking area, these columns look like an ancient temple. Geologists say they were formed by nature eons ago, but feel free to imagine whatever you want to. Truly one of the more amazing sights in northern Indiana. At Wabash, we find yet another huge transformer. This one's sporting a little color. It's also made by the Metal Source Company. I can only think that this is where all my friends' bullet bikes ended up after they crashed. Also in Wabash, and also part of the Metal Source Company, are 3 very cool sculptures. Fans of Star Wars will immediately recognize this as an AT-AT walker. That is, if they're Gen X or older. Everyone else calls them an AT-AT. Whatever the case, it's pretty sizable. On the other side of the drive is an AT-ST, because ATSTA sounds silly. If I could get one of these, and a way to make them walk around my neighborhood, you can bet I would. Just inside the gate is another Transformer, Optimus Prime. Sometimes you get a cool idea and you just run with it, and they did. Moving away from sculptures, we arrive at Rochester's Lake Manitou and a very old legend. Native Americans told early settlers that a monster lived at Lake Manitou. They were so terrified that they wouldn't get near the water, saying the monster had killed some of their people. They called the creature the Shekinebek and the lake Manitou, the Devil's Lake. But they were not the only ones to see it. Both the Potawatomi and early settlers described something resembling the Loch Ness Monster. It had a long neck and churned up the water as it swam. Men that were surveying the lake described it as 30 feet long, with the head of a horse. A local blacksmith named John Lindsay also saw the creature and made note of its horse-like head. However, he estimated it to be at least 60 feet long, twice the original estimate. In 1838, 3 fishermen also saw the lake monster. Their account was published in the Logansport Telegraph newspaper. They described a head like a cow, neck like a serpent, and also a length about 60 feet. Fishermen from across the country came with huge nets to try and catch the monster, but came up empty-handed. However, they did catch some incredibly large fish, well over 200 pounds each. In 1969, Carol Utter and her son had an encounter with the monster. When it came to the surface, it looked bigger than her 14-foot boat. That is, what she could see in the water. Other fishermen have reported similar sightings. Beyond the lake having an eerie quality, residents say they've heard a deep booming noise from below the lake. I'm not saying I'm a believer, but I'm also not putting my feet in the water. At Mentone, Indiana, we find a very, very large egg. In fact, it's claimed to be the largest egg in the entire world. I would say they were right, but I haven't been everywhere. For a fact, that was either a huge chicken or one that never walked again. Heading southeast to Huntington is the extraordinary Memorial Park. It not only holds a fine display honoring veterans, but also a hidden paradise. And if you can do a few stairs, you are in for a treat. Once a quarry, it sat abandoned for many years until someone got the idea to do something with it. This amazing garden was completed in 1929 with updates throughout the years. It is a beauty. Driving to Bern, Indiana, you'll find an absolutely huge clock tower. This massive structure is several stories high and has huge bells that ring on the hour. The area was settled by Swiss Mennonites in 1852. And this Münsterberg Plaza reminds you of a Swiss public square. At night, this beautiful place takes on a magical character. Heading north to Harlan, Indiana, we find one of the most unusual graves in the state. Here lies the body of Archie Arnold, whom in life had a silly sense of humor, and in death asked that 2 parking meters be attached to his gravesite. Both say expired. Friends of Archie have said, "You just had to know him." I believe we could have been fast friends. Northwest of Fort Wayne, Indiana, is the town of Churubusco. With great pride, the town calls itself Turtle Town, USA, and for a very strange reason. For nearly 130 years, people have been seeing a monster snapping turtle, Oscar, the Beast of Busco. It all started in 1898 when Oscar Folk saw the giant turtle in his 7-acre lake. He described it as 5 feet wide, 6 feet long, and maybe 1,500 pounds. And when he told everybody about it, no one believed him. In 1914, he saw it again, and once more, no one believed him. This was a sad day before camera phones. Fast forward to 1948, and 2 friends, Charlie Wilson and Ora Blue, both saw it. But again, this was before camera phones. No one believed them either. But things were about to change when the lake's new owner, Gail Harris and Orville Reese, saw the giant turtle. For one, Orville was a minister, and no one was going to say he was lying or drinking. Gail became completely obsessed and wanted to prove to everyone that what he saw was legit. On day 1, he made a trap and momentarily actually caught it. But being so big, it easily broke the trap and escaped. Gail fitted a boat with a periscope, but Oscar, the Beast of Busco, was always one step ahead. The beast ended up making it to national news, and hundreds of cars came from all over, hoping to see Gail actually catch it. With help of the electric company, Gail shot 2,500 volts into the lake to try and get Oscar's attention. The turtle came up briefly, but again got away. What also came up were hundreds of electrocuted fish. Clearly a win for Oscar. Gail then retrofitted his tractor and pumped the lake from 7 acres down to 1 until his tractor died. The entire endeavor was futile. It financially broke Gail to the point of selling the farm and moving away. But even today, people continue to say they've seen Oscar, the Beast of Busco. And each summer, there's a Turtle Days festival, including turtle races. The local museum commemorates the Great Turtle Hunt. While you might not be lucky enough to see Oscar in the lake, you can get a picture next to his cartoon likeness. If you ask me, that's a fine addition to any scrapbook. Sometimes I visit silly places just because I can, and this is one of them at Fremont, Indiana. It's here that you can stand on 3 states at the same time: Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. But to do this, you have to walk 130 feet south of the monument. And believe me, I wanted a picture for my album, entitled, "Why Did I Do This?" Sometimes the answer is because. As an aside, Northern Indiana has the only toll road in the state. You get a ticket when you start, and how much it costs depends on when you exit I-90. Sort of like punching the clock for work. Thank you, Indiana Toll Road. For a complete change of pace, there's a McDonald's that looks like a castle. Located at Goshen, Indiana, it's like no McDonald's I've ever seen before. Part of the Gallup's gas station convenience store chain, it is very unique. You might ask, as I did, what does it look like inside? Not really a castle, but there is a knight in armor. But with tons of stuff to eat and buy a lottery ticket, maybe you'll feel like a king. At Elkhart is Linton's Enchanted Gardens. It sounded like a good time, and I actually went inside to pay admission, but I was pleasantly surprised to hear it was free. This is like a theme park, spread across many acres. Across the property are many quirky buildings to explore. Including a pond filled with beautiful fish. Man, I would have loved this treehouse as a kid. If it was just a little bigger for my cheeseburger body, I still would. Near the back, there's a petting zoo. And a train to ride around the property. Linton's Enchanted Gardens. Come for the gardens and buy a plant as a souvenir. In downtown Goshen on the Courthouse Square is an odd remnant of the past. As the town was along the popular Lincoln Highway, a major thoroughfare, and the location of 3 banks, it was an easy target for 1930s bank robbers like John Dillinger. So in 1939, the town built a bulletproof pillbox facing those banks. Inside the structure, guards had a restroom, so they never had to leave their post. And multiple places in the bulletproof glass from which they could aim their Tommy guns. Apparently, it worked as a deterrent, and the banks remained safe. But can you imagine what a sweet gig that would be if only they had internet? Over at South Bend on the Notre Dame campus is the Grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes. Built in 1896, it's a 1/7 size replica of the one in France. Countless students have came here to pray about exams and important finals. Many have even came here and proposed marriage, finding it a serene and special place for the occasion. Every day at 6:45 p.m., rain or shine, the rosary is prayed. If you visit, be mindful of people praying here throughout the day. For our final destination on this adventure, we arrive at Beverly Shores. Situated on the southern end of Lake Michigan, it's here that you'll find the famous Pink House, built in 1933 for Chicago's World Fair. After the fair was over, a barge moved it across Lake Michigan in 1935. It's been a local landmark ever since. On one hand, it reminds me of Barbie's dream house, not my cup of tea. However, I would absolutely live here, gladly waking up to the beautiful sight of Lake Michigan and pretending it was a beach house along the Pacific. If only I had the money, which I don't. But ending the day here, after a long, awesome adventure, will absolutely do. Maybe it's time to take a road trip for you too.